What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Journey Across Media. I am your host, Jam, and today I got my guys with me to talk about something we all love, a nice Saturday morning cartoon that was dropping on Wednesdays, and that is X-Men 97. I gotta say, man, this was a phenomenal season. And joining me to break it down, I got my guy Nick from Nick Flicks. How you doing today, man?
Oh, dude, excited to talk about X-Men and that we have one with us right now.
Yes, we do. Josh, cosplayer extraordinaire. It's been a long time since I've had you on the pod, brother. How are you? How are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, it has been. I'm ready to go. Yeah, it's been a while, but no, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to talk about X-Men, and now I'm going to switch into my glasses so that I can see, though.
Yeah. Man, yeah, it's like I said, it has been a while. So I'll throw it right back to you before we kind of dive into X-Men. What have you been nerding out to? I know we talk off pod all the time, but I
Yeah,
want to know, let the people know what you've been kind of catching up on.
yeah. I actually am revisiting Daredevil season 1 and 2 Netflix because after Brand New Day, Spider-Man Brand New Day, my son was like, "Oh, I want to see more of the Punisher," and I was like, "Let's go. We're starting with Daredevil." So we started right there, and we're well into season 2 and kind of getting through that, and then I think we're going to jump into the rest of the Netflix universe and go through those. Outside of that. He's been playing through Kingdom Hearts, so I've been kind of like his
Nice.
navigator through that and like his guidebook. So been playing through that, and outside of that, I've been reworking my studio. So at some point, I'll have to have you over and see this new studio.
They're
You've been
doing the
saying,
really quick. They're doing the Kingdom of Hearts re-release of the first three games for
Yes,
PlayStation 4 and 5. So I just ordered that because I want my son to
nice.
start. Like I want to play them with him. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's a fun one for sure.
Yeah.
yeah, man. I feel like we always say we're gonna like hang out. You're gonna come over here. I'm gonna come over there, and it just never happens. So we
We're
have to
making it
actually,
happen.
we actually,
Yeah,
actually have
we have
actually
to.
have to make it happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nick, what have you been catching up on? What have you been like nerding out to, watching, reading, playing, whatever?
Well, like we were talking off mic, all the new Doomsday X-Men characters, little Funko vinyl figures. I'm like, debating which ones I want to get because they just haven't made up until X-Men 97 came out. They haven't made like a ton of X-Men figures unless you do like the Marvel Legends, but those look all different. I'm like, I kind of want the live action one. So looking at that, but yeah, just X-Men. I mean, look, I'm excited for Lanterns. I saw a bunch of people. I don't like when people review a show though without seeing the whole thing. So everyone is like, "Oh, it's great so far." I'm like, "100. Oh, I'm sure it's going to be great." I go, "But I would wait till like the whole show comes out before you're like, oh yeah, the show's great." Because if the ending's bad, it seems like that's all people will remember is if it ends poorly. But I'm looking forward to that. Like as someone who's not a Lanterns like fan, like I've told you, Jam, I'm all for the show because I love the team they assembled to make it and the
Hmm.
actors. So it's like I'm ready to learn this new world that I've never really cared to learn. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, man. Look, Lanterns is my most anticipated project of the year. They only gave screeners for 4 episodes. So
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
that's why everybody has only given like their halfway review. And they're not even allowed to talk about plot points or what's going
Mhm.
on actually in the story, which is very interesting when it comes out Sunday. Today, well, you
Well,
guys
could
will
I
be
ask
seeing
you
this
guys,
Saturday.
would you want to watch 4 episodes of a show that you have to wait 5 weeks until episode 5? Like I
Yeah,
was
no, I'm
thinking about that.
probably gonna.
I
There's some
get the
screeners that I
concept of
don't
like,
ask
oh
for because
yeah,
of that. There's some screeners I don't ask
yeah,
for with certain, and again, I appreciate the opportunities to, write
yeah.
reviews and see these things for everybody, but sometimes I'm just like, I know what I'm getting myself into.
Hmm.
I will say though, Lanterns would have been one of them. I probably would have watched all 4 episodes though, and then waited and because I would have watched it
Good idea.
again as it came. You
For
know what I
sure,
mean?
for
But
sure.
Yeah.
let's dive into something that we are excited to talk about, and that is X-Men 97 season 2. I want to kind of talk about our overall thoughts, but before we kind of get into like the whole nitty-gritty of it, I got to ask you guys, Nick, I'll throw it right back to you. This is kind of a I guess a two-part question. No, you could just throw it into one. Who's your favorite X-Men? But I want a Mount Rushmore. If you can, there's so many. I feel like I
Ooh,
like a lot of characters, so
okay.
give me at least 4. If you can't give me 4, give me however many you can. You know what I mean? But at least
Yeah,
try to
I'll
make it at
do
least 4.
and I'll stick it with this. I'll stick it with X-Men in the animated series because that's the one that's the most prevalent for me. But Beast was always my favorite. It was just something about like the smart guy who's a monster type thing, like and I loved his run in that original animated series, and I like how they use him. I mean, he's used kind of sparingly in the show, but I think when they use him, it's effective, and he's just a weird throwback because of like the my stars and garters and like these kind of goofy lines that only work because it's Beast saying them. But if I was doing like a Mount Rushmore between, I'll look at it through the lens of like when I was a kid watching it, and then as I revisited it, and then with X-Men '97, Gambit's up there because I think people who don't watch the show and they're like, oh, the guy just throws cards. I'm like, no, he is much more than that, man. I'm like, he is. That's not his only thing. And then, man, I think Nightcrawler now because of the way he's kind of they've used him in X-Men '97 season 1 and 2, and then like I always like Storm and Rogue. Like, they were always awesome characters. But Storm, I mean, she was just such a badass, and I know she again gets used more sparingly because part of the X-Men is there's so many characters. There's just no way in 9 episodes you could use everyone to like their fullest. You have to like I think people forget that like this isn't like the 90s when I think they would get like 20 to 25 episodes to do a season. Now it's like
Right.
you got to tell your whole thing in 9 to 10.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just
Yeah.
and that's for every streaming series. It's just not like how it was when we all grew up watching TV, where it was like, oh, you'd get 20 episodes a season. Like that's almost unheard of now.
Yeah.
Yeah, the volume is very different. We just talked about it a little bit yesterday. Actually, we were live for X-Men '97 on Agents of Fandom. For those that are watching this will be dropping tomorrow while we're recording. But for everybody that's watching this will be dropping Saturday. Like again, Saturday morning cartoons. Josh, I think I know a couple of yours, but who are your favorite X-Men if you got a Mount Rushmore?
Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with the X-Men and X-Men '97 animation and kind of go with those because I could pick from the comics line too and go wild. But I feel like with what they've done with this show, I've really grown attached to Storm, so I'd put her up there pretty far. I'd put Wolverine up there. I really like the story arc that they've done with him in this. I would put Gambit in there for sure. And then I think outside of that, I'm also going to say Nightcrawler because I love how they utilized his character in this for sure. And there's one more. If I were
Honorable
to
mention.
on, yeah, honorable mention, and actually, I think he's actually one of my favorite of what they've done with this show, and that's Morph. The treatment of
Yeah, I
Morph
was just
in
gonna
this
say,
show
yeah.
is fantastic. So I feel like since he could be all of those, we're gonna honorable mention him.
I love that. I love that, man. Y'all know
Yeah.
mine's immediately. I have to got the claws here always just prepared. They're gonna cast me in the MCU as Wolverine one day. Hopefully,
You know
fingers
it.
crossed. Yeah, Wolverine is the first immediately, top number 1. After that, like my last 3 are kind of like they changed like in order. I don't really have it in order from there, but Rogue is in there, Storm is in there, and then yeah, Nightcrawler has always been in there. I really love X. I like the Fox movies for how bad they were. That's kind of like what I grew up with. So that's kind of like all I knew, and I really think the X2 opening is like incredible. So Nightcrawler has always been on there for me, and I liked what they used to do with him in the old show. But this season, or this series 97 has really taken it to a whole new level for me with Nightcrawler. Honorable mention though, I'll say since we're kind of keeping it in the 97 space, between last season and then this season, they're not really an X-Men, but damn it, they're an X-Men by heart at this point, and that's my guy Magneto.
Oh yeah.
Magneto has I've always loved Magneto, but I feel like this is just giving a whole nother like flavor to like modern audiences. So I really appreciate Magneto. That would be my honorable mention.
Yeah.
All right, but let's dive into it, Josh. I'll throw it right back to you. Overall thoughts on on the season, and this is like a spoiler. You know, you're good. We can dive into spoilers,
Okay.
anything. So
Yeah.
overall thoughts on the season.
So super fresh in my mind. I actually finished up the last episode this afternoon. So
Oh, wow. Nice.
it was, it's one of those things where I think there were some sleeper episodes that I was just kind of like, all right, I'm done with this story. We got to get through it. But from the very first episode of this season, the way that they dived into it, the way that we got kind of their take on Age of Apocalypse with this, and how they played through that. I think the storylines were really good, and to take them in, put them into these 30-minute episodes that we got, and we get 9 of those, so they're really super limited with the amount of time that they have to tell these stories.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of jumping around, and so they're trying to keep that action going. And I think that was the part that got me, is that those episodes that were slower, it was because they weren't jumping around. They were actually trying to tell that story a little bit more in depth. But when we get to this last episode today, literally the last 45 seconds of it, I'm sitting there, I'm watching the episode, I'm liking the way the story goes, and then that ending hits, and I was not prepared,
Me
and
neither.
little tears just start rolling down my face, and I was like, what just happened? Because I mean, hey, listen, if we're diving into spoilers, I'm just going to straight up say it. I was not expecting Nightcrawler to be the one to go with that. And the prep that they put in there for Rogue to be the one that's going to sacrifice herself, for her love, just truly shows again why he's such a great character, that he understood what sacrifice really is, and how much that was going to mean to all of them as a whole in that moment, and then what that does for them moving forward. So to propel this storyline forward with that is phenomenal. So I think from an overall standpoint, the way that story played out, very well done. Very well done.
I can't agree more, man. It's. I think this is. We talked about it yesterday, like I said on the Ages of Fandom, and I think X-Men 97 is up there with some of the best, at least contemporary, like more modern stuff, some of the best animated superhero stuff. It's got, you got like the Cape Crusader, the My Adventures with Superman, Invincible, My Hero Academia. I think it's among the greats, contemporary stuff. You could even really say all time, if we're being quite honest. I feel like this is giving me the same feelings that Batman animated series used to give me, the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited and Static Shock, like all the Bruce Timm stuff used to give me. So I really agree with everything you said. I want to add on to that. I think the art and animation this season was upped tenfold, because that was one of my biggest things last season. I felt like it was very comic booky, whereas this, it's still the same art style and animation, but I think they give us a lot more bolder line work. It's a lot more expressive with their colors and like effects that they use, like a lot of like anime stuff. Like I remember, I mean, like we'll get into the Rogue, Magneto, Nightcrawler. Like we'll dive deep into those, but like Magneto's basically condensing the black hole was like a Dragon Ball Z spirit, like Goku using the spirit bomb. You got Jubilee when she throws her powers, like what is it? I guess she's like technically atomic matter. I think Emma Frost called it in the comics, but whatever. When she uses her powers to like break Havoc's plane in this finale episode, that was like a Krillin Destructo disc from Dragon Ball Z. Like, there's just so many like little anime references that I'm like, oh yeah, you guys are taking it there. So I really appreciate the art and animation style. Josh, as you mentioned, a lot of the storytelling was phenomenal. And the character work that they got to do with it. And then to Nick's point earlier, as being able to do all of this within 9 episodes is tough. And I think that is really the only criticism I've heard that I think is fair, is some of the pacing feels a little bit like, a little fast and rushed sometime. Which, to your point, Josh, there's those episodes where they slow down and you're like, I don't care as much as this. Like, maybe I do personally, as one of my favorite episodes. We'll dive into these as well, but one of the best episodes for me was the Wolverine episode. But that's not like overarching, right? Like, so I think there's time like that where I could understand the criticisms of the pacing, But I think overall they really hit it with this one. Nick, how do you feel? Overall thoughts on the season, and then we're gonna start diving deep into it.
Oh yeah, no, I loved it, man. I like I said, like we mentioned about, I just wish they would give them at least like 15 episodes. And that was the same thing with season
I would
one.
be
It's
good
like
with
the
13,
only
Yeah.
yeah, just enough to
12
flesh
or
out. And
13.
yeah, and I've seen some criticisms like, oh well, they missed Bo DeMayo, and I'm like, yeah, but you also look. I'm not saying he didn't do a great job in season one, but he basically wrote most of season two. But you also don't know how much other people's influence went into season one or season two, and
Well, he
you
wrote
got
up
one
to
less
episode
episode.
he wrote up to
Yeah.
episode, I think it was like 6 or something like, or
So
like I
yeah,
think it might have
basically
been
over
4.
half the season, and
Yeah.
that's assuming it's the exact 1 through 6 that we got, and not here's 6 episodes, and then you fill in the, maybe like the filler ones or whatever. But it's again, I think it would have suffered from not enough episodes to tell such a big story. But I like that they took that swing. I'd rather you do something big than like, well, we only have 9 episodes, so let's make it small again, and we'll make these great episodes, but it won't feel like it really went anywhere. Whereas this felt like every episode felt like, oh man, something big could happen. And I still liked the like. I saw someone was like, oh, Wolverine got his claws back too fast, and I'm like, yeah, but well, what did you want him to do? Wait another year? Like, what does it matter? He's gonna get him back. He wasn't gonna go the rest of the series without getting him back. I go, and they barely use Wolverine. Like, they're really good about kind of spreading the wealth over the characters who don't get the like maybe like the star treatment they should, like Nightcrawler, for instance. I mean, between episode 5 of season one, in Genosha, where it's like he finally gets to kind of shine a little bit. The set, what happens to Gambit, and then what I remember him most for was the finale last year when he's fighting with Wolverine, and Wolverine's like, I got 6 answers for you. And then he pops up. He's like, no, 9. And they start sword fighting with like all the bad guys. And you're like, oh, that's awesome. Like, it's cool to use Nightcrawler. And then this year was all about him having faith in the people he loves. And his like trial episode, I thought was awesome. I thought that was a very good, like for like a kind of one-off. And then the way they use him in the finale is just like, as soon as she says the whole line about like, well, there needed to be a sacrifice. And at first you're like, oh no, like Gambit finally got to kiss you, and like you guys finally get to be together, and now you're going to be gone. And then you see Beast get off the plane with holding the Bible, and you're just like, oh my God, no. And then you see, and it's just like, what I like about this show is obviously it's a cartoon, so except for a show like Invincibles, most cartoons will be geared that kids could watch. Unless it's like a rated R one, that specifically you're like, okay, that's clearly not for kids. But this reminds me so much of Batman the Animated Series and how they did it in the 90s, where they don't talk down to their audience. And that I appreciate that. Like, yeah, kids are going to watch it, but you also know really it's going to be people our age who grew up on this stuff are going to watch this show and share it with their kids. Like, my kids are just starting to get into X-Men because they love the intro. And I'm like, yeah, that's how it was in the 90s. I'm like, when Daddy was young, and it was like, that's what gets you hooked is the intro. And then you learn about X-Men if you didn't read the comics. So, but I really like the season a lot. I like the time traveling stuff. I like how Apocalypse was. I mean, when he kills Magneto, you're just like, holy crap. And then you keep thinking like, oh, he'll come back. And then he doesn't come back for the rest of it. And you're like, oh, like when he will. Because, I know like the superhero trope is, oh, well, they're never really dead. I'm like, yeah, but if you do it right, you could, it's okay. Like
There needs
Gambit's
to be a
return, I
sense of
thought,
permanence sometimes.
yeah.
There needs to be a sense of permanence.
Oh, for sure. And for Magneto's one, it's like, if that is permanent, it makes sense. You're not killing off.
There's theories of how he'll
Wolverine
come
or
back, but I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
But that episode was nuts.
It was so I want to dive into it all. There's another criticism I actually do agree with, but I think for me personally, I don't mind it. I understand the critique. I don't care because I want to wipe my hands clean of Apocalypse. I am so tired. I am done. I am grateful he is gone. I feel like everything with X-Men, he is always, what does he say in this? I will always be. He is always fucking around, and I'm tired. I just want to wipe my hands with him. And while again, I do understand the criticism of him feeling rushed, like we didn't really get to see the Age of Apocalypse, and he's never done right. He's always done. So I don't like it's kind of like one of those things. It's like, yes, he's never really done as accurate as possible, but he's always there. He's always since the 90s, you get X-Men Evolution, you get Wolverine and the X-Men. He's always there. Apocalypse is always the end all be all antagonist. He's their Thanos for the mutant saga or whatever. And I really feel like it's time for 97 specifically to move on. So I was very grateful that the joke online is that they turned him into a paperweight. I don't care. I'm very happy about that. But I wanted to ask you guys, what did you think overall with the apocalypse of it? Because for me, I think the strongest portion of Apocalypse was the earlier episodes, specifically the scenes when he's basically on Sabanur and he has to fight the Pharaoh, and you get to see Apocalypse as the warrior, not really too much as like the celestial mutant that he evolves into. And so for me, I think that was my highlight of Apocalypse, and I do understand the criticisms later on that it was just like they kind of rushed it, they were quick. On the flip side to that, before I ask you guys the question, is I don't want to plant this in your head. I feel like the seed was planted for more of Apocalypse being a theme of death and survival, because those are very similar. A lot of people think death and surviving are very separate and far apart. I feel like survival and death was a very big theme in this specific season, and that's what Apocalypse embodied, which I think is the opposite of this theme, which is love, the love between Rogue and Gambit. And I feel like those two were prevalent throughout, and faith as well with Nightcrawler in the mix. I feel like faith and love were the opposite themes of death and survival throughout this whole shebang. And I feel like it's throughout the whole season, not just like certain episodes. We get like those bits and pieces. So my question to you is, and I'll throw it right back to you, Nick. How did you feel like Apocalypse was handled? Like Josh mentioned earlier, this age of Apocalypse. Did you enjoy it? Do you kind of understand the criticisms? How do you feel?
Yeah, and like I said, criticisms are always fair if you're coming at it with some type of logic. Like criticizing something like, I don't like it because they used a white guy or a black guy or something. Then it's like, well, that criticism goes out the window because that's clearly, unless it's detrimental to the character. Like people joke, you're not going to cast a white guy to play T'Challa. Like that's important that he should be an African American. So if it's a criticism that's valid, I could accept that. It doesn't mean that I have a criticism with it. Like for me, I was fine with how they used Apocalypse, but I do like when he was how do you say his character's name? Not Oxalamu. That's
on Sabanur.
Yeah. Yes. When I loved that stuff with him more than when he is like the half machine type thing, but it still worked for the story. I'm just like, look, I mean, if you had 13 episodes, you could have flushed it out more, but I'm also like, I also don't like if you flush something out too much where now you're just waiting for it to stop, where you're like, oh God, get me. So I'd always rather it be too short than too long. It's like a great movie. I'd rather a great movie, you'd be like, man, I wish there was 10 more minutes of it than, God, I wish they would have cut 25 out of this movie.
Yeah.
So because I feel like, maybe they rushed it a little, but at the same time, I didn't think it was anything that, was like, oh my God, now the season's ruined for me because they couldn't have fleshed it out. Because when they do the battles, which the show's not just the battles, but the battles all slap and were just awesome. So it's like the story to me was good enough, and then the battles and the animation style took it over for me. But yeah, I thought I think it's fair. Like definitely early on, those first like 4 episodes were the strongest, but it doesn't mean the rest wasn't still good. I think unfortunately, like anything, I just don't think you're gonna always please everyone, even when it's great. Because comics are so hard, man. It's the hardest thing, and I've talked to you about this, Jam, where it's like there's so much source material. Which one are you following, and are you changing it? And your change may be important for your narrative, but the hard part is people already have preconceived notions of these characters. This isn't like you're painting whatever. Yeah. So I do think like sometimes comic book criticisms could be very fair, but also it's like sometimes you just got to take it with a grain of salt and go, look, it's not going to be for everyone. Just do it well. And if did you like it? And I think this show has earned enough good graces that even if you don't love it, I think you could appreciate what they still did with it.
Yeah, they definitely they for me as a comic reader, I feel like, and we were talking about this again on I felt like I use all my greatest points over for Age as a fan. I need to start saving my points for myself here. But we were talking about it yesterday, and this is a show that takes like the source material and like it has that essence of it. It's very closely, I don't want to say adapted, but that feeling of the comics while still giving you a bunch of twists and turns that you aren't really expecting, or you don't really know where they're gonna go. So it's very pure and like closely to that essence, whereas still feeling like something fresh and new. And so I agree with you there. And for what it's worth, again, I'm very happy they got rid of Apocalypse. I don't think it was like bad, because I'm just tired of him. Like he was here last season too. Like I'm over it. But Josh, how do you feel? I felt like he was solid, man. I thought that and we're gonna get into this next, but he felt very bad. Like he had that line where he tells Xavier, he's like, only cowards feel mighty stepping on ants. Oh my, something like that, man. Like,
that was it.
How do you feel, Josh? How did you feel about the apocalypse of it all?
Yeah, I agree. I think some of it comes down to pacing in this show, and being limited to 9 episodes at 30 minutes each. You've got to speed things up. You've got to kind of throw people into the mix of what's happening and let them put the pieces together as they're watching it. So you kind of jump into an episode and you might go, wait, what is happening with this? And the story just unfolds, and then you tie those two ends together. So I think they did a good job of that. My biggest complaint with it, I wanted to see the Horseman. I want to see him recruit the Horseman. I want to see the powers change for the Horseman. I want to see what they did. And really, because that's part of how he is so devastating, is to pull people to his cause, and people that we love that are on the side of Xavier or even Magneto, and pull him to his cause. I want to see that happen and see that shift in that character. And in most cases, you get that redemption arc. But again, 9 episodes, 30 minutes, we're just not going to get that. So the adaptation that they had to do for what they were going to use in this show, I think they did a great job. And I agree with you. It's like, yeah, Apocalypse has been around for everything. So yes, put him as a paperweight, set him on the desk in one of the classrooms, and then we come back to it later, right?
That's it.
That's what we're going to do. Yeah. But yeah, I think like that's it. Like let's move this story forward, and let's do something different that's not Apocalypse. Yeah.
So I want to add on.
Did you guys like the tease? I'm sorry. Did you like the tease then at the end where they'd be going for next season? Because I feel like
we're gonna talk.
Yeah.
With the apocalypse of it all, I agree with you, Josh. I would have also liked to see the Horsemen. Like I do. I feel like we've seen them, but I don't care. I want to see them more. And if you're not gonna do the ones from the comics, give me some new ones. Make Jubilee.
Exactly.
I don't care.
You
like
free range.
You have free range. What I will say is the apocalypse of it all. Unfortunately, that was Bo DeMaio's story, and he didn't finish it. So that's possibly why it could feel like that when it comes to who took over afterwards. But this is a great segue because we talked about it a little bit. But from the apocalypse to my guy Magneto's perishing, I feel like this whole first 4, what was it? I guess he died. What, 5th episode? 4th episode he died. No, he died 3rd episode. No, it was 4th. It was 4th. Whatever. It was something in there. Because I think I think he died
First
4, and then Wolverine's episode was the 5th, something like that. But regardless, those first few episodes with Magneto, or that first, I think he was in like maybe 2 or 3, really, I felt like encapsulated everything of Magneto's character from past, present, and modern like stuff in comics. I felt that they did a very good job with Magneto. The one issue I had with the early stuff was Magneto kind of egging Ansabanur Apocalypse on like to basically wipe all of these people. Like it was like he's trying to create a tyrant instead of basically telling Magneto, "Hey, I've been through this with like the Holocaust. I've been on the other side of this. This isn't the way to go about it." As well as he's literally kind of agreeing with Charles. Charles is the one like, "Hey, we shouldn't be doing this. This is not okay." So I felt like while I could understand the humane aspects of Magneto there, as a big Magneto fan, I felt like they weren't utilizing his character the best, because that's not like Magneto is not going to egg on a tyrant to become a tyrant, especially if it's fucking Apocalypse. That said, where they go with it and him having to basically save Charles or sacrifice himself for Charles, absolutely beautiful. The impact it has on Charles Xavier, as we see throughout the rest of the season, absolutely beautiful. How did you guys feel, Josh? I'll throw it right back to you. Magneto's death, and also the rumor. This is the second part to that question. How did you feel about his death? But then, how do you feel about like the rumors of him possibly coming back as Zorn, like he does in the comics, or potentially the onslaught of it all with Xavier?
Yeah. So that's his best friend, man. And to
Brothers.
see that's his brother. Yeah, absolutely. And to see the impact of that on Charles, and to really let that storyline play out the way that we saw it, to see him struggle with it, to put himself through penance almost by having to rewatch it in the danger room. I think that was beautiful. Like you said, Jam, like it was something that he hasn't come to terms with that loss yet, and to be able to fully come to terms with that, he's got a lot of work to do. And we see that with being able to share stories with Polaris, and being able to kind of bring the best out of her, even though she's so afraid that she would become like her father. She is her own person. But like he said, I can't remember exactly the line, but he was like, basically, we have to look at what we are made of, and to be who we truly are. And I think that was such an important thing to think about, because again, that's his brother, man. And to see it happen, and to see him sacrifice himself, no matter where they were, whether they were allies or they were at each other's throats, through it all, they were brothers. And that's exactly what that storyline did, and told it beautifully, I thought.
I love that we're talking about this, because it's always the jokes online. This is just jokes, of course, but the shipping of Magneto and Charles, their boyfriends or husbands. I always find it funny, but it reminds me so much as an anime fan. And I know, Josh, you kind of dabbled into this, so you might know a little bit, but it really reminds me a lot of Naruto and Sasuke's story. Just rivals that eventually become brothers, and they always kind of were brothers, just two sides of the opposite coin, essentially. And so I really love the whole Magneto of it all. Nick, how about you? What did you feel about Magneto's storyline, his death, and how it impacted Charles?
Yeah, no, I loved it, man. I think that they're such an important story, but at the same time, it's almost like you don't want everything to center around just the two of them, because I think they're so good that you also, I mean, the X-Men is just such a deep roster, and it's like you
Mm-hmm.
could do so many things. That's why killing off someone like, if it's going to have impact, and killing off Magneto is a huge impact because there's so many people tied to him, but really for Charles, and I just loved when he's in that room reliving it over and over, and then like when it kind of snaps on him, and
Oh,
it's like, I mean, like it also shows the arrogance of Charles, because Apocalypse calls him out on it twice, where he's just like, you still haven't learned, and it's like, yeah, that's part of Xavier's incredibly flawed. Like him and Magneto are so flawed, yet it's so funny. It's almost like politics. I think everyone in general wants the same thing, but it's how do you go about it? And it's like these two want the same thing, but one basically is the evil one, one's the good one. But then you really look at it and you're like, they both basically are right in the middle, because they both do shady things, and then they both
right.
also do things to help people out. It's just one's way more like no, I am this, and the other one, like everyone jokes about
He
with Charles, is
teeters.
they're like, no, he does some pretty bad things because he mind controls people, but he's also he's thinking for the greater good, which is not always the right way to think. And kind of the same thing for Magneto. It's just he does it in the bad guy way, where it's also
Mm,
like casualties of war, man. This stuff's gonna happen.
because
But
I've seen it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And he's always a fascinating character. I think it's why whenever there's anything X-Men, it's like you want Magneto, but you also want to save him because you want to let other people shine. And I think this show did a really good job of like not making it all just about him and Charles, but that's always part of like the heart of this show is their friendship. It's so important. It's like that's just a theme that you can't do an X-Men thing without that kind of theme in their relationship. But I am looking forward to see like where it goes from here. As long as it's done well, then I don't care how they bring him back. If it's done
Yeah,
well, it's
yeah.
fine. I think people get too caught up on like he now has to be dead for so many episodes. I'm like, well, unless it's good. Like I liked how
Yeah.
they brought Gambit back. He dies halfway through the first season, then really doesn't come back until the last 2.5 episodes of this season. Like actually come and do something, and but I do think they'll probably keep him dead for a while because again, you have a lot of stories you could tell. You kind of will get into like the cliffhanger ending, but I think they handled it well, and I think that moment just with I like how they killed him with not seeing it, but you seeing it through the shadow, and then just boom, and then it's just his helmet, and him kind of tossing that to Charles is like the ultimate slap in the face of like it just was done really well.
My favorite part of that was actually seeing Apocalypse about to shoot the beam through him and his whole body was like lighting up. You could see his skeleton. I said,
Mhm.
yes, give it to me. Uh, you mentioned and Josh, you mentioned it earlier about like how it impacted Polaris as well. Like shout out to Agents of Fandom. We got to actually interview the voice actress for Polaris, both she's the English as well as the Spanish voice actress for
Oh,
Polaris.
that's cool.
That's awesome.
She got to dub herself in Spanish too. So that was that doesn't usually happen often in voice acting. So really shout out to her. But she was really cool, and I just felt like that impact. You get to that moment of her kind of embracing all of who Magneto was and showing how powerful he actually was, and embracing that essence into her was some of my favorite things. But another woman that Charles had a huge impact on, excuse me, not Charles, but Magneto had a huge impact on. That they don't really go into their relationship this season because we lost her lover last season, and that is Rogue. And I really just want to talk about like I said, this is a love story with Rogue, so we get that throughout the whole season. But I want to talk about how we get her Wonder form. I call it her Wonder form because the tiara at the top, it looked like it had the Wonder Woman W. I was like, that's interesting. Um, what did you guys think? And Nick, I'll throw it right back to you. What did you think of her Wonder form? My guy TJ at Agents of Fandom, he said it yesterday. For me, this reminded me of an anime moment, and I'll explain why. But he was saying how he felt like this episode didn't really have stakes because they started the episode with Rogue getting this superpower, and then we go into the rest of the episode with basically the team trying to fight each other for like to stop Apocalypse. Apocalypse comes, and you really know in the back of your mind, like, well, Rogue is coming with this celestial power to kill Apocalypse. But what I told him, I said, see, you're looking at the Rogue superpower up and the Nightcrawler sacrifice as two separate things, but they're not. That's a very anime-esque thing where they throw something in your face and that you think that you know it's going to go one way, and then they pull the rug out of you, and it's like, holy fuck. And so, backtrack to it all. How did you feel about the Rogue super form, Wonder form, if you will?
Oh yeah, no, I thought it was awesome, and she was the right character for it, and it, so many times in these superhero, movies or shows, it's like the heroes they don't get the ending they want without losing something, and for her, it was like you finally get her and Gambit back, where they could be together, but it costs the other person who's the closest to her, her brother with Nightcrawler, and it's like I just think Rogue's such a good character, and she's so powerful, and I like again. I like that they could weave these guys in and out where it's like maybe one episode they're not the sole focus, but I feel like she had a through line through the whole thing. Like even in the early episodes when she's not
Yeah.
focused as much, but she's talking to Apocalypse before he takes that form about like, well, you're not the only one to have lost someone you love. Like it's just like it happens, and I
Mhm.
just I liked her ending. I liked, when she kind of saves, Remy twice, essentially, in episode 8 and then in episode 9. So yeah, she's just, look, I mean, she's kick ass, and when she gets all powered up and like you're like, oh damn, and then puts Apocalypse in that, like you said, the paperweight, and it's like, okay, it's gonna, like you said, because he's not dead, still they can always go back to that eventually, which they
Mhm.
will. They didn't leave him alive to not ever use him again, but I think it was cool, and it was cool that it was like, oh, right as Charles is like, oh crap, all my X-Men are now
About to kill
possessed by
me.
him, and then in comes Rogue. Yeah, so and like, look, obviously, I wouldn't say there's no stakes. I mean, I could get someone thinking that, but it's also like, well, but you're gonna show her getting it, so like your hope is you're so enthralled that by the time it's like Miss Marvel coming to help out in Endgame. You know she's gonna come and help, but you're getting in the moment and you're not thinking it
Oh,
until
Captain Marvel. Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, Captain Marvel, where it's like, oh yeah, okay, that makes total sense. But if the story's good enough, you forget for that split second that you're like, oh, wait a minute, hold on, yeah, here they come. And I think that's superhero, the genre when it's done well, is you do forget for the split second that you're like, oh yeah, of course they're not gonna kill him or they're not gonna all be bad. And then if they were, it's like that'd be a shock. But then everyone complained like, well, then who's the good guy? If every single good guy gets turned evil, how do
My
you like?
Apocalypse.
What's the
Yeah, yeah.
point? Yeah. So, but no, I thought it was cool, man, and just the animation style is great too. Like I'm just such a huge fan of how they animate this series. So that was really cool.
Yeah, it gave me, Josh, it gave me like the anime power up vibes. Like she had her Sailor Moon transformation. I would have
Yeah.
liked if they would have shown the magical transformation though. That's like my one criticism. If they would have done like a little spin of Rogue
Yeah,
or
a
like the
2 minute
powers.
long Voltron like, power up. Yeah.
Not it don't even gotta be 2 minutes. Like just like literally give me like a 15-second little spin, nice little music. Crazy.
Yeah.
I would have lost it. I would have lost it. But
For
how did you
sure.
feel about her wonder form?
Yeah, I mean, look, the fact that we got to see a celestial in the show and the way that they did it was so well done.
Mhm.
And so I think that there's a lot of things that went really well with this is that we get to see a celestial, we get to tie it to some of the mindset and ideas of the MCU
Mm.
because her wonder form, as you said, looks very much like one of the Eternals suits, and I think that kind of putting those little pieces together, giving it that animation style, giving that, like you said, that Sailor Moon kind of vibe to it, put it in its own category, but at the same time we get that familiarity of what we've already seen in some other things. So like putting it all together, that
Like
even though
Kang.
like Kang, even though
Mhm.
this is its own separate universe within the multiverse of Marvel, to kind of have those things to tie it to what we're seeing in the main storyline of the Marvel stuff that we get. I loved it. We talked a little bit about the animation style, and I think that her character is one of the ones that the character designers did such a good job of bringing what felt like in the previous Fox Kids X-Men show to the way that they brought it to us now. They did such a good job with that. I want to dive into some of the animation stuff later if we've got time to kind of talk about some specifics in character design. But I love that. I love that we get this power up for her and that it's not a permanent thing. It doesn't last. We get
Yeah.
it for what it's needed for, and then that's it.
And then that's it. And then we get to where we want to go now, which is the biggest sacrifice of them all. My guy Nightcrawler. I, like you mentioned earlier, Josh, we've talked about it throughout the episode, but I bawled like a baby. I was stressed. I couldn't, like, my head was just pounding. I can't believe that I didn't expect this to happen. And Nick, you brought it up earlier. I felt like they really have a little bit of the foreshadowing there with his episode, the trial episode. I felt like that right there was a very big indicator, like, oh yeah, this guy might go somewhere. He might die. He's very much talking about sacrifice. The whole trial is, are you going to die or save this person? Like, is this person going to get killed because of his bad actions, or am I going to be able to save this person? So I loved it so much, but it tore my soul. Fuck this show. It is the worst show ever. I hate it. No, Josh, I'll throw it right back to you. We talked a little bit about it, but how did you feel about my
Yeah,
guy?
I mean, like they gave us so much great stuff with Nightcrawler, and that battle where he was just
He
bamfing
beat
all
everybody up.
across the
He
whole.
beat out
Yeah,
all the X-Men.
God, it's phenomenal. Like just some of the fight choreography that they did in the show is amazing, and to see what they did with him and to give him the swords and everything, and really just showcase him and what he can do was absolutely phenomenal. And that build up kind of gave me this sense of, oh, they love him. They're not going to do anything with this character. I love it. This is great. So when it cuts to that, like you said, Nick, when we see Beast standing next to the Quinjet and he is holding the Bible, you're like, wait, hold on. And then it cuts to him in front of the Celestial, and you're like, oh no. And that was it. I mean, I surprised myself, tear rolled down, and then the rest of it just started coming with it, because you knew at that point, like, that's where the story was going to have to go to push it in the direction that they needed it to go.
What's so wild about it to me is that throughout the whole episode, I'm like, well, Beast and Nightcrawler are still back there. Why didn't they just teleport back to where the? And then you get that moment. I'm like, oh no, Nick, how did you feel about our guy passing, man, or sacrificing himself, I should say?
Yeah, I was shocked by it. Like, again, because you're so caught up in what's going on that you're not thinking like, oh, why isn't Nightcrawler fighting with them? Because yeah, like Beast would have to fly back, but he could also just take Beast and he could teleport back to like the and but it's not like hitting you really, because you're just so caught up in what's going on.
Right.
And then they have this great moment, they kiss, and you're like, oh, you're like, damn, this is gonna rip my heart out when it turns out that she can't still be with him and she's sacrificed. Because either way, you're losing a great character. That's the thing with the X-Men. So many of these characters are so great, so you're like, oh, we're gonna lose a great character, and you're just not thinking about it. And then all of a sudden, the way she's like, well, someone had to make the sacrifice, and it cuts then to Beast, and you're just like, oh, holy crap. Like it is such a good bait and switch. And again, it's a decision that makes sense. He's sacrificing himself so that she could have happiness, instead of her sacrificing herself to bring back Gambit, but then Gambit would be crushed when she can't be there anymore.
And he says that.
And it's almost
He
like,
says that too.
and what I loved about with the episode 2 or 3 episodes before that, what the episode of the trial is, he thought he had a compelling argument, and then Colossus is like, well, by the way, I still was going to say he was guilty, but like, I appreciate you trying. And like, you made valid points, but still, and it's a show, and just these characters are all about, you want to have faith in humanity, even though in their world, humanity keeps showing them why you shouldn't. And I think Nightcrawler was that great example of, like, again, it's like like Spider-Man, Daredevil, or Batman, like the code of not killing and being like, no. Like, even though they're a bad person, they don't deserve to die. And I think for Nightcrawler, it was that, like, no. I know he's awful, but there's good in everybody, and he's one of those characters that it's going to be fascinating to see how they use him in live action, because I feel like this show set the template for what you should do with Nightcrawler. I'm really, I think this whole series has been an example of, like, here's your template, guys. Pull from it what you will, but you kind of have the ideas, and I'm not saying do exactly what the show does, but like
Right.
you could make a live action version of this show and have the same themes, the same action. But yeah, it was just it was a really sad, but also it made sense. So while it's heartbreaking to see, you're like, it fits the story. And again, it didn't feel out of character for him to make the sacrifice. If it would have been someone else, that would have felt weird. I think it had to be one that was going to pull out
Right.
your
Right.
heart, and I think that does. And then the whole season in context now makes sense why Nightcrawler got so much to do, especially later in the series or in the season. So it's more fresh and top of your mind that you're like, oh yeah, that's right. Like this all just made sense.
Yeah, and I think it had to be someone, not just it had to be someone close to Rogue too, like that. You would feel it, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, a little bit more, because the whole story throughout this like season has basically been her love with Gambit, or trying to somehow bring Gambit back in the grand scheme of things. Um,
Mhm.
Josh, I want to throw this one to you because I know you said you wanted to talk about character designs and things like that. So I was just gonna ask, like, really my last thing before we get into predictions of next season, because I have one theory that they're gonna do. But what are your favorite episodes, highlights? I know you wanted to mention character design, so let me know.
Yeah. Oh God, I think the Wolverine one is probably one of my favorites because it was its own one thing. Honestly, I would watch a whole season of just that crew, like going around and doing things. The nods to Alien that they brought in there, and
Uh-huh.
Aliens with the Game Over Man and everything like that was
Yeah.
just so well done. I love that episode, and that we get to see Morph in that episode and the way that they utilized him, because Morph in this whole series so far was such a power up from what he used to be in the old
Original
show,
one.
the original show. And I think that they're utilizing him in a much better way. They can take him on a serious note, they can take him for comic relief, to bring in kind of some other bits of nostalgia for us. We get to see the 90s Spider-Man in it, we get to see the Fantastic Four in it, we get to see the different Avengers in it, and they just did such a good job with that. So that I think that those are some of my outstanding moments of the show. My biggest disappointment is Cable. I was
Fair.
not a fan of how they played his character in the show, and the animation, the design for his character, I think fell short of everybody else's. If you really go back and you look at it, the line work that they used on him was different from everyone else. They gave the X-Men different costumes throughout it. I mean, listen, you put Gambit in a crop top in the kitchen and then you put him back in it in the last episode. Phenomenal way to make it so that he's not sitting in there in his uniform the entire time, although they put him in his jacket in the bed and that drove me crazy. But anyway, but you could have done so much more with Cable. The color choices that they made with that green and the grays and the browns, it just made him get lost on the screen, honestly. And so I feel like you have such an interesting character that you can really do a whole lot with, that they just fell short, in my opinion, with him. And I would have liked to have seen them had a better design of a character for him, and a little bit better just kind of with utilization of him.
I want to ask you, do you think that maybe that choice was uh for a reason, seeing as he's from the future and he's not from their timeline? Do you think that maybe that was like a stylistic choice?
Maybe, but then if we look at the way that they did Bishop,
Bishop, that's
and and they updated his character design, and
yeah,
they did
yeah,
a
yeah. No, that's
phenomenal job
fair.
with him.
That's fair.
And even when we look at some of those other characters that were from the future, they did an amazing job with the character
Like
designs. And it's
Mother
like
Asani.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I
Yeah.
think it's like they try to take that one Rob Liefeld comic book cover of Cable and say this is what he has to look like at every shot, and it doesn't always work like that.
That's
especially
fair.
when you have a character that moves. Now, can you do it in 27 frames in a comic book over 32 pages, and you only see him in that many frames? Sure, you can make it work because you can make it look dynamic. But when you're using these character models that they use, sometimes those turns just don't work. And I think for him, it was the one that was the most impactful for me of seeing kind of the breaks in the animation.
Okay, okay, that's a good point. That's a good point. Nick, how about you? Any favorite episodes you wanted to, or other highlights that you wanted to bring up before we start getting into our predictions?
Yeah, I thought the trial one was just like a really cool idea. I loved Bishop and Polaris together. Like I was
Mm.
like, oh man, this is a really good combo. And had there been more seasons, I think they would have had an episode of just like the two of them, or not more seasons, sorry, more episodes. But like it does give like you planted a lot of good seeds with them. And yeah, no, I get the Cable thing for sure. I think he was definitely the least compelling looking, like you said, like the animation of it, of like a lot of the characters.
Yeah, even Havoc looked
It's
cooler than him.
Yeah.
yeah. But I agreed with you on the Wolverine. I really dug that episode. And again, it's hard because people tend to not like one-off episodes. My thing is, I'm fine with it if it's good. And it's like, how could you watch that and not be like, man, this episode kicked ass? Like, and that's
Yeah.
okay. I think sometimes people get caught in the like, every episode needs to be an A plus where it's action, story, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, but it's okay to have a one-off. Again, it it's a monster of the week episode, but it actually led to something and it actually works with the characters. And Morph had the kind of heartbreaking thing of like Logan, like, like you disappointed me. Like, and even like, him having the like looking in his reflection of his claws and being like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done this, like, or at least not gone about it this way. But no one could tell me watching that episode that action was not like, man, this is creepy. It's cool. It's interesting. It's a fun tease of characters that, you're like, are these guys going to be around a while? And it was totally fine that they were just like, no, they're kind of just the sacrifice for him. And that's totally fine. Like, you'll get over it. And no, man, I thought that episode was really cool. I just really just dug it all. It's like, I don't know if I have like one in particular. I mean, seeing Evil Gambit was pretty badass. And like
Yeah.
the way when the lady comes out of the river and she's like, who dares wake me? Goes, I don't got time for this, and kills her. And is like, okay, like there's something about that episode and the Nightcrawler kicking everyone's ass and showing how tough he is, like, which would make sense. He could poof in and out of wherever he wants and show up wherever he wants. It's similar to like how Ant-Man, going from big to small, how it would shock you unless you could actually try to follow him. But this is like you
Or the
can't follow
Flash
him.
being
He just,
super
or
fast
the
and
Flash,
just
yeah, so fast that. But like, yeah, no, I really dug those episodes, and I thought the animation of the wedding, from Gambit and Rogue, when they're like that, the way New Orleans looks and all of that was just, and then you have your almost like Avengers Assemble moment with, like, to me, my ex, when they all show up to help her, and you're like, oh, this is so cool. And I think, like, again, it's like, yeah, a show could be prestigious, which I think this show is, especially for animation, but you still want those like pump your fist moments. That doesn't take away. I feel like sometimes people criticize a show for having those moments, and it's like, yeah, but they're earned because these
Mhm.
characters are so well written that even if you don't like exactly how they got to it, in the moment you're like, damn, that was cool. Like,
Yeah.
it's just so cool to see all these X-Men showing up together, and you're like, oh man, shit's about to go down, and then Cable turning on everyone, and you're like, oh, you saw that coming, but it still works. Like, again, there's very little, like, heel turns you don't see coming, because again, you kind of get why he's gonna do it. But I thought it worked. I was like, that I just thought that episode to me was like a real standout for a lot of reasons. But I think especially animation, I just thought he looked so cool as like the evil zombie-esque Gambit.
Yeah, I also like the Gambit, the Apocalypse Gambit design. That
Yeah.
was so
Yeah.
cool. That was like just so random. That shit was awesome. My favorite stuff was honestly some of the action in this show. I think they did a really good job getting to say, I like I mentioned earlier in the episode, getting to see Ansaba Noor in like full warrior mode, not just using tech
Mhm.
and enhancements, but just straight warrior beast like Thor, the Hulk type stuff. I was like, oh yeah, just give me more of this.
Yeah.
One of my favorite highlights of this season was actually in the finale, Wolverine and Morph versus Psylocke, and I don't even know who the other person was that was there. I don't even remember.
Archangel.
Archangel. Oh, bro, getting to see Wolverine versus Psylocke and him using the sword and showing off the samurai skills, incredible cinema. Give me 5 more episodes of just that. Then she gets on top of him and like stabs him with the telepathic sigh, and he's like, good try, lady. This brain has already been scrambled. Give me 12 more episodes of just this. Nick, you
Yeah.
mentioned it like you love throwaway episodes. I personally would love an animation of any superhero show that's like an anthology series. A episode like a villain of the week. I don't care. I don't need no big overarching story. Just every episode is self-contained. Very similar to like Star Wars Visions. Give me and then you know what? You could even do it like that. You can push out a different like every episode has a different animation studio doing it. I don't care. I would be great
Well,
with it. But
it's-
something like
it's-
that would be incredible.
It's funny you say that. It's like a what if type thing, and I kind of wish they would do that in both DC and Marvel for movies, where it's like this does not like my
Like
thought of
animated
like
movies?
imagine no, but like imagine in a live action movie if you're like I could use Hugh Jackman's Wolverine with Tony Stark and do a thing like we never thought we'd see type of not saying
Are
they
we
fight
getting
each other,
that
but,
kind
like,
of in Doomsday?
no, but like it would just be cool to be like, hey, this doesn't go anywhere. This is just a one-off movie to geek out over, or like I think of like, oh, how cool would it be if you could mix certain characters from different Batman movies? Like, would that work? Like, could you do like a one-off movie or animation for sure? But like, I'd be fine with that. I think while it's great to connect everything, a serialized, but it is funny though. But Star Wars gets criticized for it because they have too many, episodes like that in some other shows where it's like, oh, Monster of the Week, here we go. But again, I think is it done well? And like you said, the Wolverine stuff, he doesn't get used a lot in this show, but when they do use
Which
him,
I do
he
like.
kicks ass. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
but I think that was a smart choice because we've seen Wolverine for 25 years used a ton. It's great that you're using because the easy thing would have been make Wolverine the lead, because
Main
we just
character,
know
yeah.
that's how he's the main character now, but it's like he never was that. I think it's why the interesting thing with the movies is you get characters who you think are the leads, and then it's like, well, actually, no, these guys were the bigger of the characters.
What I
not
would like
these
for the
guys.
MCU is them to not use Wolverine for the first movie. The
I don't
first
think
X-Men
think
movie.
they will for that first movie. I think
I
it's going to be
want
a
them
lot
to not.
smaller of a cast. I also think you can't use Wolverine because you got to let it breathe because it's
Yes,
only
I
been one
agree.
actor to play him. Which we
I
will do
agree.
this on another episode, but like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
definitely certain characters you got to let breathe is important as they are, but it's like except Charles, you have to use a Charles. You can't
Right.
do X-Men and be like,
But I
oh,
do
we're
feel
gonna
like
skip
Wolverine is the
Charles.
one you can like you said, especially with Hugh Jackman. Just he's probably still gonna be
Like, let it-
around, maybe like after Secret Wars or something. Like who knows? I want to talk a little bit about next season. The way this season ended, we get one thing I wanted personally, during Nightcrawler's sacrifice and like him talking. I would have loved a funeral scene because it felt like everybody was just moving on with their lives. It was like, yeah, we're all happy.
Well-
The couple's back together. But I think
Yeah.
that's how next season is going to start. And the way I feel, my prediction is based off of that end credit scene, that post credit scene of Mystique basically killing the X Factor head and what was it? Is it Henry Gyrick? Henry Gyrick becoming president of the United
president,
States,
yeah.
commander in chief. My theory is we're gonna have Mystique go on a little bit of a rampage because Nightcrawler died. And I think that's why she took over X Factor. That's why I think next season's first episode will have the Nightcrawler funeral scene because it will set the tone and the overarching plot of, okay, Mystique is on a warpath. This is why she's now in charge of X Factor. She's now in charge of X Factor. And I think they're going to do the Days of Future Past storyline, but more closer to the actual comics and not the movie where Mystique tries to basically kill the president, Henry Gyrick. That is my theory for next season. But Nick, I'll throw it right back to you. What do you think, or if you do you have any predictions on next season?
Yeah. No, I could totally see what you're saying. I didn't have like a prediction myself, but I could totally see them. They're clearly going that way. She wouldn't have done what she did if she wasn't planning on something, or she's
I think
gonna
it's a
take
whole like
over as the
mutant war,
president. Yeah,
war
it's
versus
definitely
I guess
leading to
America,
that. Yeah.
something like that. Yeah,
And what I will say though is I think the reason why they didn't do a funeral, like you said, I think they're gonna do one to start season 3, but I think when he's making the sacrifice and they're showing what everyone's doing kind of like after, I think that's more in Nightcrawler imagining what's going to happen when he's
Ooh.
gone. Like I'm doing this, and I'm not saying that it still doesn't happen, but I think it's he wants them all to have the happy ending, even though he's got to even though it's so I think part of it was like, hey, look, this is the great world they could have that Nightcrawler's talked about. And then because if you do the funeral, then I think it takes away a little bit, and I think they'll do something for him
I
and
get
they'll
what you
show
mean.
it.
Yeah,
And then so I think that's probably why. But yeah, I mean they definitely should. I mean, look, he's he's definitely earned it. But I'm curious if Mystique will be the big bad through the whole season. And again, if it's only 9 episodes, you could do it that way. And like it's like they're not going to be time traveling. Maybe I don't know. That's what I'm curious about. Is like I feel like they
with Cable
left
there
it
still,
pretty open ended. Yeah, they left
and
it pretty
Bishop.
open ended. Yeah, so I mean I'm intrigued by it. I definitely want to see. And it's also now you're going to have the season with this new group, the new writing team of like this is now all
Actually, this
theirs.
is their yes.
Yeah, this is their. And again, I'm not taking shots at Bo DeMeo. Look, that's a messy situation,
right,
but he
right.
did
Yeah,
a great job in season 1. But like again, you have the tools. You guys clearly have talent because he didn't write everything by himself. No one ever writes a show like this all by themselves. So like
Right.
this group clearly knows these characters, and now it's going to be interesting. I saw someone was like they think season 3 will be more. They were like, oh, I think it's gonna be better than season 2, and they still like season 2, but they're like, I think season 2 was trying to clean up certain things as well because of the change and like
Yeah.
someone leaving when they're not finished with a season and now trying to fill in the gaps. Whereas now it's like much like season 1, hey, this is it now.
This is
like
done.
you
This
guys
is
have
complete.
a fresh
Yeah.
start. Yeah. So I do think we're in for. I think we're gonna be in for. I think something. So far, each season has had something major happen with a character dying. I think you're going to get that again. I think if they play the cards the same way, it'll be somewhere in the middle because that seems to be the best way to potentially take someone out. So
I know
but
who's
I
gonna
like your
die.
theory about I like your theory about doing like a Days of Futures Past type thing, but like how they
My
do
guy
it in the
TJ, my guy TJ at Agents of Fandom came up with this theory. So this is technically not my theory, but I as soon as he said it, I said I love it. He's like, well, who are they not gonna kill? That was his first thought process. Who do you not kill in season 3? And he's like, Storm. But then his mind went, oh, adjacent. You have to kill somebody just like they do with Nightcrawler. You have to feel it. And you would feel Forge for Storm. If so, I think Forge could be the person that they kill. Not somebody that we care as much about, but we care because we really care about Storm. But Josh, any predictions for next season? And then you can take us into your final thoughts of the overall season.
I don't have any predictions. I want to see what they do with it is really it. Now I have wants for sure.
Yeah.
And I think like I would love to see them now that Storm is the head mistress. I want to see that. I want to see her running the school. How does she bring in new students? How does she treat them? How do they move forward with how they train new mutants? And I think it'll be really interesting what that does if they can kind of play around with that storyline, which would also go into what TJ's saying too, is like, hey, listen, we're getting more of this Storm, and obviously if we've got more Storm, that means we're going to have more Forge, and so that impact would be even greater there too. So I'd love to see that. I love all the the random X-Men that they're bringing in and different mutants that they're bringing in. I just
Like
want to
the
see
New
that
Mutants, that
character
was
in there for
wild.
oh, that was wild.
I was
Generation
like,
X being in there, wild.
no speaking lines. They're just in the background. I'm like, give me more of that. Like, I like that.
Same, exactly. That's what I want to see.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, we can get out of here if you guys. Nick, you have any final thoughts on the season?
Yeah, no, just like I said, I mean, my biggest critique would be just give them more episodes, but I know it's not going to happen. This is the new I think here's the thing. This is the new format. We just got to get used to. It's like we
Well,
can
okay,
all
so
yell
let
at
me
the
ask you
clouds.
this.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this to piggyback off of that before we head out of here. And Josh, I'll ask you as well. But would you rather have more episodes of this like same format where it's 30 minutes, or would you rather have an hour-long episode like Invincible, but still keeping it however many episodes we got? What, 9?
I'm again, as long as it's good, I don't care. I don't think I have a preference.
You don't
I'll
have a
say
preference?
this as having 2 younger kids, I like shorter episodes because it's easier to
Okay.
stay up at night to watch. But again, if it's done well, if you're only going to give them 9 though, I wouldn't mind if maybe like 2 or 3 episodes
Are longer.
10 minutes longer, 15 minutes longer, because again, it's not like you're on cable where you're like, crap, we got to fit in that 30-minute window, or
Yeah,
really it's
yeah.
22 minutes because you're adding in commercials.
Yeah.
It's like you could make these as long as you want. So I would say that would be my only critique for them is like, hey, maybe like the last 3 episodes or like the first episode and the last one, make them a little longer. Like if it makes sense for the story, for sure. But no, I mean, I think overall season 2, look, season 1 set a very high bar.
Yes.
And I saw someone was like, they thought season 2 started better than season 1, but season 1 ended better than season 2. But he's like, but overall, they're both very good. And I'm like, that's totally
I
fair.
could agree with. I could
totally see
agree. I
that,
could
but-
agree with that sentiment.
But no, I mean, I think they continue the legacy of like how good the show is. And again, even if you didn't love this season, anyone who's saying it was a bad season, then I'm like, I don't know what to do for you then. Like, it's, again, everyone can
You
have their
can't ple-
opinions.
You
Even
can't,
if
yeah, you
yours
can't
is
please
wrong,
everybody,
but-
like you said. You can't. You're never gonna be
Yeah.
able to, especially in like fandoms of like nerd stuff, Star Wars, Marvel, DC. You're never gonna please everybody.
It's the
All right,
hardest
man,
fandoms to win over, man. Sometimes.
I'm nervous to get into the James Bond franchises because I've been in some spaces now where there's a lot of opinions. You know what I mean, and that's to say the least. But Nick, take us out of here, man. Where can the people find you, find your pod, and all your work, man?
Yeah, man. Nick Flicks podcast is one of 2 pods I do. The other one is Nick Flicks and Phil at the Movies. Again, we're both movie podcasts, just nerd out about different stuff. They're both on Apple and Spotify, and then you can follow me on Twitter at Nick Flicks Pod or Nick Flicks and Phil at the Movies, also on Twitter and Instagram and I think I almost said LinkedIn. I'm like, not LinkedIn. It's same color thing. Too many apps have the same colors. Blue Sky. So yeah,
Okay.
just if you want to give me a follow, like I'm cool. Me and Jam talk all the time, and Josh is really cool getting to talk to you tonight about this stuff. So
Likewise.
yeah, man, just like talking movies, you know.
Great, man. Josh, where can the people find you? All of your character designs, your work, your cosplays, and everything else you do.
Yeah. So on my artwork, you can find me at Josh Bishop Illustration on Instagram, and this little guy over here that you see on that side. You can find my cosplay stuff at Grey_Matter. That's GREY_Matter, and yeah, both on Instagram.
Yeah, man. It was a pleasure to speak with you guys tonight, man. And that's pretty much it for X-Men 97 Season 2. I say this is a love story. I will still say this season was a love story. And that's we're going to end it. I appreciate everybody for tapping in. Yes, yeah, man.
You gotta say to me, my X-Men.
Yeah.
To me, my X-Men.
And that's it.
Yeah,
Make sure you check us out. If you like this video, leave a thumbs up. Comment who's your favorite X-Men and all of the good vibes. We will be back. Man, actually, what is the next thing I am talking about? Josh, we'll be back again. Next episode, we'll be talking about D23 and everything that dropped from there with our friend Ernest in the Illuminati chat that we have. So we're going to have 3/4 of the Illuminati together. We appreciate everybody that checked us out today. On behalf of myself, Nick, and Josh, we will see you guys next time. Peace. Oh, hold up.
Check.